Hello everyone, my name is Chul-Hee and it's a pleasure to meet you. I have prepared a content about research on the effective information entry method of drum one-shot audio samples. Early drum machines could only use drum sound by combining white noise and sine waves. But with the release of Lee's LM1 in 1980, it was possible to sample and program actual drum audio sources. Since then, with the release of relatively inexpensive digital samplers, such as EMU's SP1200 and Akai's MPC, music production using sampling techniques has rapidly increased. Since then, high-quality audio sample CDs, such as EMU's Proteus Pack, Akai's MPC drum kit, and Vengeance sample pack have been released, allowing popular music producers to produce music using audio samples more easily. Also, with the appearance of audio sample CDs, one-shot audio samples that can be used immediately without a separate editing process have been popularized. Currently, due to the development of the internet, there are various websites that provide audio samples. In particular, Splice, a website launched in 2013, offers millions of samples, loops, effects, and presets, which are used by millions of musicians. As such, modern popular music producers frequently use audio samples when producing music. In particular, one-shot audio samples for individual instruments, such as bass drum, snare drum, and hi-hat cymbals, are very useful materials for music production. Since the process of playing, editing, and mixing the audio samples has been previously completed, they can be used immediately as a sound source. However, the currently used audio sample information lighting method have to be improved because it is possible to predict the acoustic information of the sound source without a listening process. Therefore, this study aims to contribute to improving the efficiency of work by suggesting a method of effectively displaying acoustic information on drum one-shot audio samples, which are becoming more popular in music production as such. Audio sample CDs are generally classified by specific genre or style of music. The production company selects a specific genre and style that can be commercialized, then produces and releases audio samples corresponding to them. And users listen to an audio sample CD corresponding to the music they want to make and then select a specific sample. When handling the sample, the genre and style entered by the production company have the greatest influence on the selection of audio samples. Users typically keep the title of the album entered by the production company, even if the audio sample CD's sound source is moved to a storage device in the form of a file. Figure 1 is the cover images of the audio sample CD released by Vengeance. You can see the release of the audio sample CDs classified according to genres such as future house, trance, minimal house, or styles such as total dance sound, dirty electro, and club sound. If the file names of audio samples are changed, it could cause confusion, so users generally may file in album units. This classification method is commonly used because of the advantage of being able to predict a genre and style that audio samples are aimed at, but has a limitation in that it is difficult to predict the acoustic characteristics of each sample. On the other hand, websites such as Splice provide simplified images of the waveform of the sound source, along with text for the type of audio sample, instrument, and genre. This method helps predict an approximate through visual information on the audio sample waveform. Figure 2 is a screenshot of a page where you can listen to and download Splice audio samples. It is difficult to determine what kind of acoustic characteristics the audio sample has by just the file name OSTS Corvette snare. However, using the one-shot drums, snare, hip-hop, trap tag information, we can figure out that the audio sample is a one-shot sample and the instrument is a hip-hop and trap genre aimed snare drum. In addition, it is possible to roughly predict the envelope change through a simplified image of the audio sample form to the left of the file name. However, information that determines the tone such as pitch and overtone cannot be grasped. In this way, in the process of finding the desired drum audio sample, the user spends an excessive amount of time listening to the numerous audio samples he has. This can be regarded as a problem due to the limitation that information of the audio sample cannot be effectively written. Therefore, it is expected that the efficiency of the working speed can be greatly improved. If the information writing method of the one-shot audio sample can be effectively improved, acoustic information of sound can be subdivided countlessly according to purpose and classification. But among a variety of information, 5 types of information that have a major influence on the acoustic characteristics of the one-shot audio sample are selected as follows, and the analysis method of each information was presented. First, the duration of the sound source must be considered when writing information about the one-shot audio sample. In particular, in the case of the highest cymbals, the closed hi-hat and the open hi-hat have similar elements such as pitch and overtone. But the difference in duration is large as shown in figure 3. Note that the duration of the sample may differ from the length of the entire sound source. If you look at the waveform of the left closed hi-hat in figure 3, you can see that the length of the sound source is longer than the actual duration of the audio sample, because there is a gap after the sample is finished. Therefore, since it is difficult to determine the actual duration of an audio sample using only the total length information of the sound source, it is very important to measure the actual duration and provide information. In addition, as shown in the figure 4, the duration of the bass drum is shorter than the actual sound source through audio effects, such as gate and compressor as in the left sample. But adding a sub-oscillator can do the opposite, as shown in the right sample. This result shows us that big differences can occur on the same instrument depending on the genre and style. Therefore, if the duration of the audio sample is measured and information is provided in a numerical value, the user will be able to take the first step towards selecting a sample even if he or she does not listen to the sample. By using the principle of threshold level in dynamic effectors like a gate and compressor, it is possible to measure the duration of an audio sample. In this case, it is necessary to consider to what extent sound pressure. This is because if the threshold level is set too low, the noise can be recognized as a sound source and an intended result and can be obtained. Among the main factors that determine the tone of a drum sound, the peak energy frequency depends on invariant factors such as the size and thickness of the instrument and variable factors such as tuning. The change in peak energy frequency according to each factors is as in Table 1. And Hyung-Jin analyzed the peak energy frequency for each genre per year for the bass drum in his paper as shown in Table 2. Of course, it is not possible to generalize drum audio sample aimed at a specific genre, because the number of sample sources analyzed in his thesis is insufficient. But it is possible to confirm that there may be differences in peak energy frequency for each sound source. Therefore, by detecting the peak energy frequency of an audio sample and providing numerical information, users can select audio samples similar to their desired sound source and exclude the rest from the listening process, significantly improving the speed of their work. The method of detecting the peak energy frequency is possible with the peak frequency measurement using a frequency analyzer. Unlike instruments that maintain a constant tone, such as a piano, a guitar, string instruments, and wind instruments, drums tend to have a frequency that exceeds fundamental tone in an overtone structure rather than a harmonic structure. In Figure 5, the first spectrum, the piano, and the second spectrum, the cello, have significantly different frequency characteristics from the third spectrum, pink noise. This is because a specific frequency is amplified from fundamental frequency to harmonics. However, in the case of the fourth spectrum, the crash cymbal, and the fifth spectrum, the snare drum, a number of unspecified frequencies are amplified very tightly. This is similar to the frequency characteristics of pink noise as shown in the figure. Even for the same instrument with similar fundamental frequency, the tone varies greatly depending on the structure of the overtone. When the high frequency overtone sound pressure is high, the sound gets brighter and clear, while the sound gets darker and softer if the high frequency overtone sound pressure is low. Figure 6 shows the audio spectrum of two bass drum audio samples with a similar fundamental frequency, but significantly different overtone structures. The sample on the left has a low high frequency overtone sound pressure, and the sample on the right has a high frequency overtone sound pressure. Therefore, if the sound pressure of the high frequency overtone of the audio sample is detected and information is provided in a numerical value, the user can preferentially select audio samples close to the desired tone, thereby greatly saving the time spent in the listening process. In order to quantify the overtone, it can be calculated as the difference in sound pressure for each frequency band detected in the spectrogram. Drum instruments such as bass drum, snare drum, and tom-tom drums shows a momentary shift of pitch from high notes to low notes when playing. This phenomenon occurs due to the process of rapidly retuning to the original sound by pressing the head at the moment of the stroke. At this time, the degree of increasing tension is proportional to the strength of the stroke. When a stroke is performed with a strong force, The pressure applied to the head also rises, resulting in a large change in pitch. When a stroke is performed with a weak force, the change in the tension of the head is not large, so the change in pitch is also small. The figure 7 is a spectrogram of playing different intensities with the same bass drum. The left side is the strongly played sound source, while the right side is the weakly played sound source. And the sound pressure of the weakly played right sound source was amplified to be the same as the left sound source in order to set the sound pressure of the two sound sources to be equal. If at the same sound pressure, it can be seen that the pitch variation of the strongly played left sound source is significantly larger and clearer than the weakly played right sound source. Therefore, if you provide information in numerical terms after detecting the degree of pitch change of the audio sample, you can actively refer to selecting the desired tone sample. The degree of tapping sound of the sample can be quantified based on the width of the pitch change in the spectrogram. In the drum audio sample, the transient shape can be divided into a shape with an emphasis on attack and a shape with emphasis on sustain. In the form where the attack is emphasized, the sound pressure sharply decreased after the peak level, so that a strong tapping sound can be felt. And the form in which the sustain is emphasized amplifies the sustain level after the peak level, resulting in a rich sound. Figure 8 is an example of transforming the original bass drum audio sample on the left into an attack emphasis shape at the center and a sustain emphasis shape at the right. It can be seen that even if the original sample is the same, the result of the sample transformed in the form with the emphasis on attack and the sample transformed in the form with the sustain emphasis are significantly different. Therefore, if information about whether the transient shape is close to the attack emphasis shape or the sustain emphasis shape is provided numerically, it will be useful to refer to the user's desired audio sample selection. At this time, if you set the value of the linearly decreasing shape at 50%, the attack emphasis type value corresponding to the extreme exponential curve at 0%, and the sustain emphasis type value corresponding to the extreme logarithmic curve at 100%. While using percent units to express the value, you will be able to predict the transient shape of the sample even without listening. Transient shape measurement can be quantified through changes in sound pressure over time detected in the spectrogram. The simplest way to enter each information analyzed through the preceding process into an audio sample is to write it in the file name. However, there is a further disadvantage in this case, that it is difficult to arrange sequentially into 5 key information categories. Therefore, for effective information entry, the following methods are proposed. The 5 methods of recording sound source information presented prior to the drum one-shot audio sample are possible by entering each of the media information in the 5 properties of the existing Windows operating system. into participatory musician, album, year, shop, genre. It provides information for participating musicians by recording duration in millisecond units, peak energy frequency in the album in hertz units, difference in overtones sound pressure to peak energy frequency sound pressure in decibel units for the ear, sharp in semitone units for tapping sound, and transient shape in percent units for the genre. Figure 9 is an example of filling in the drum audio sample information by the method presented above. This information allows users to predict approximate tone without having to listen to sound sources, and easily sort out similar sound sources by arranging files based on that information. Figure 10 above shows an example of the samples arranged in File Explorer based on the information entered in the audio sample. The advantage is that the samples can be sorted by similar sound source information, effectively reducing the time to select the desired sound source. And objective and standardized information can be entered without the use of unstructured information methods such as arbitrary or abstract file name previously used. However, while the above method has the convenience of storing audio information with the general ability to use a computer, there exists a disadvantage that the name of the item and the actual information do not match, which could cause confusion. It is necessary to modify each item name to a name that conforms to the information of the sound source. As a way to improve the inconsistency problem between the items of media information and the entered information, we propose a coding technique through the use of software. Using the Python programming language developed by computer programmer Guido van Rossum, audio information hidden in a sound source can be converted to be displayed as an item corresponding to the information. To implement such programming, ID3 of Travis Shirk should be used. ID3 can be imported and used within Python, which makes it possible to import the ID3 tag. Song information of the sound source file into the program. You can load the song file into the program using load, save it, and then output the information value by inputting the desired information. Table 3 shows the code for executing this process. An example of the resulting values is shown in Table 4. Through this process, while maintaining the advantage of embedding information in the sound source file using the existing ID3 tag, it is possible to prevent confusion and inconvenience for users that may occur due to different information content and item names. In the case of existing drum audio samples, information was provided by making specific genres or styles, or by tagging audio samples, instruments, etc., and simplified sound source waveform images. However, it was difficult to provide objective information about the tone in this traditional way. So users still had to go through the hassle of listening to every single sample sound source. This is a factor that undermines the efficiency of the work but there have been no clear progress in solving this yet. Thus, this study suggested a systemic method of deriving and filling out the main information of Drummond audio sample. Through this, audio sample users can roughly recognize the acoustical characteristics of the sound source without the listening progress. And functions such as spatial arrangement of each information will be effectively used in the selection of the sample sound source. We hope this study will reduce the working hours of music production efficiently, and we hope that the producers who produce audio samples will also use it actively. Thank you for listening.